Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, another report of sexual assault cases on the rise in the U.S. military. And there's also a huge increase in flu cases in San Diego County. Also tonight, while San Diego's been pushing to expand the downtown convention center, critics say repairs are being delayed with a risk to public safety.
Alzheimer's disease is the third leading cause of death in the region. What the County Board of Supervisors' ambitious project is doing to improve the odds and how you can help. Then, how much rain will it take to wash away San Diego's drought? I'm Peggy Pico with the answer and an update on the storm's progress.
And some of the last survivors of the attack on Pearl Harbor gather to remember the fallen. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The Pentagon is set to release a new report tomorrow on sexual assault in the military. Associated Press says the number of reported assaults rose 8% last year. At the same time, the RAND Corporation is putting out a survey finding victims are more willing to come forward than in the past. The two reports come as Congress pushes for changes in the military justice system to improve how it handles sexual assault. 17 states are suing to challenge President Obama's executive actions on immigration. Texas is leading the coalition to block actions designed to spare as many as 5 million people from deportation. At the same time, some congressional Republicans say they'll oppose legislation to keep the government open in their own effort to stop what they say is amnesty. Covered California is joining immigrant rights leaders and government officials to urge Latinos to sign up for health care coverage. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg joins us from the North County Bureau. Kenny, I understand many Latinos are reluctant because they're afraid their information could be used to deport undocumented family members?
That's right, Dwayne, and I'm told this feeling is especially widespread among Latinos whose families have mixed immigration status. And I think it stems in part from Latinos' experiences in their own home countries with those governments, as well as the adverse relationship that Latinos have traditionally had with the immigration agency in the U.S.
So what's this new effort about?
Covered California is running ads on Spanish language television, as well as putting fact sheets on their website in English and Spanish that explain Covered California does not share any information with immigration officials. In fact, I had an immigration official tell me today emphatically that they get no information on enrollment from Covered California whatsoever.
And what's the situation like here in California regarding Latinos and health care insurance?
Well, in the first year of Covered California, about 1 out of 3 people who enrolled in the exchange were Latinos. However, about 600,000 Latinos in California still remain uninsured.
And how might President Obama's recent action on immigration affect this?
Well, that's hard to say because President Obama's recent action doesn't grant immigration status to new people, doesn't give them citizenship, so they won't be eligible for Covered California. However, there has been a bill that's reintroduced in the state Senate that would give undocumented immigrants access to the Medi-Cal program. So we'll have to see what happens with that.
KPBS healthcare reporter Kenny Goldberg. You may have noticed it around work or school. A lot of folks coming down with the flu these days. County Health Agency says its lab confirmed 141 cases this flu season, a 156% increase from the same time last year. They're telling folks to get their flu shots. Of course, you can find a location at sdiz.org or call 211. Another day of wet weather around the county. It caused some problems on the roadways, but there aren't any reports of serious flooding tonight. Still, a coastal flood advisory is up until 10 in the morning. The storm is expected to move on by tomorrow afternoon. Here's a look at some of the rainfall totals around the county. These are numbers for a 12-hour period from 1 a.m. to about 1 this afternoon. The most rain fell in the mountain areas. Of course, this is the first major storm of the season. Peggy Pico explains its impact on our drought and finds out when we can expect more rain.
This storm hasn't delivered as much rain as predicted, but is this just the first of more to come? And how many days like today will it take to wash away the drought? My guest, meteorologist Alex Tardy with the National Weather Service, joins us with an update. And Alex, there's still some flash flood watches in parts of the county here. So when will this storm be over, and how much rain have we seen, and do you think we will see by the time it's all said and done?
Well, when it finally started raining yesterday afternoon and overnight, most places saw a ½ inch to an inch of rain. That's quite a bit of rain, especially since we haven't seen that kind of rain since February of last year. The flash flood watches are still in effect just to the north of us because of the additional rain that's expected tonight. And that rain's going to come down pretty good. And the rain that we had yesterday, add the two together, most places should have seen 1 to 2 inches by all said and done on Thursday.
In some places, I think Palomar up to 3 inches.
In our mountain areas,
right?
Correct. Palomar's already received 3.5 inches rain. Yeah.
Wow.
So you add another inch or so, and now you get close to 5 inches.
Okay, so this puts us to what for the year, and how does this rainfall this year compared to last year, or what our normal rainfall is?
So this is going to be relatively a drop in the bucket, but it's a great start to the winter because we're early in the winter now when we're talking about this rain. It's not February, March, and winter's half past us. So this is going to put us a little bit above normal for this current winter, but we need at least 100% normal winter or 150%, so more than a normal winter, to get us out of where we are. That's how bad it is. We're missing a season and a half of precipitation in the past 4 years. So it's almost as if we missed the whole winter.
In Southern California, though, in most of Southern California, it's been raining since Saturday, starting up kind of in LA and Orange County and coming this way. How much rain does the state need, does California need to actually get us out of this drought?
Right now, the whole state, in the current drought, which is about 36 months long, is missing 21 inches of rain. And that's a cumulative and average across the whole state. It's a big number. So you start doing the math, and the whole state needs about 1.5 times the rainfall to get out of the drought.
And our normal rainfall in San Diego is, I understand, less than Arizona's usually.
Yeah, it's about 10 inches of rain.
Okay.
You go inland, like to Alpine, it almost doubles pretty quick because of the mountains and the terrain. So,
does this particular storm, if it doesn't help with our drought, really, does it really help diminish wildfires in the coming year?
And that's a great point, because it does. It will immediately see impact to our fuels or our vegetation, which does help reduce the stress of the fuels. It actually helps start greening things up. We'll see annual grasses starting to green up in a couple weeks after it warms up a little bit. So it's a big impact on our fire weather. It doesn't end the fire weather season, which, gosh, normally this time of the year we should be ending the fire weather season. So we need a couple more storms like this to really end the fire weather season. And
that being said, does this storm mean that this El Nino, as was promised, is on its way at last?
Sure seems like it, right? The El Nino is forming over the equatorial Pacific Ocean as we speak. It's not quite where we want to see it, but I think, yeah, it's a good indication that the ocean and the atmosphere are starting to work together. And what that means is that can bring more storms to Southern California.
And particularly here in San Diego,
yeah,
correct?
Yeah.
All right. How long has it been since San Diego's had a major rainstorm?
Yeah, it seems, I don't know if I can remember, but a real major storm would be December 2010, right before Christmas. It's probably easy to forget because it's a few years ago, but it was widespread. San Diego City got about 5 inches of rain in 48 hours, flooding everywhere. But to put in perspective, a comparable storm, February 28th of last winter.
Oh, so okay, but we didn't get enough of them. Is that the reason? Okay.
It was really,
that's what
we had about 2 storms last year. We had one in November, one in late February, and that just doesn't do it.
No, a lot more. What is it going to take to bring enough rain, enough wet winter storms to San Diego?
It's probably going to take a couple seasons or a couple winters to really do it, but we've seen in the past, 1978 was one of those years where we just wiped out the drought in one season. We're not expecting that this year, unfortunately. So a little luck, patterns come the right way, and at least we'll go significantly back into the right direction to get some normalcy to this.
All righty. Well, meteorologist Alex Tardy, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
A San Diego economist is forecasting solid growth for the region through the end of next year. Alan Jen tracks economic indicators for the University of San Diego. His latest index is at its highest level in 7 years. He says there's a drag in new housing construction, but demand is still strong. Jen also expects folks to spend more this holiday season because of lower gas prices and a higher minimum wage. We've heard a lot about efforts to expand the San Diego Convention Center downtown, but what the public has rarely heard is a less sexy topic, the $30 million logjam of repairs needed to keep it running. KPBS investigative reporter Meetha Sharma says officials are trying to figure out how to pay the tab as critics say delays are risking public safety.
For the last 3 years, the convention center's insurers have urged officials to replace the fire sprinklers in the exhibit halls with bigger ones. The insurers said the greatest risk to the facility is actually a fire in one of those halls, according to internal documents. Larger sprinklers, they said, offered the best protection because they could make bigger water drops. But in a memo earlier this year, a convention center official said there were no plans for bigger sprinklers. Lawyer Corey Briggs says the sprinklers are one of several fixes needed at the convention center, but delayed because there's no money.
And they say 1 year, okay, we'll think about it. The next year, okay, we're going to get some quotes. The third year, that's irresponsible.
Briggs successfully sued the city, claiming its financing scheme for the $520 million convention center expansion required a public vote. He says the backlog of repairs, including replacing the sales pavilion to the tune of $15 million, is proof operators aren't ready to oversee an even larger facility.
If you can't properly manage what you already have, and you can't properly budget for it, and you can't make a wise use of the public money you get, why would anybody in their right mind give you another $500 million or $1 billion to do something else?
Convention center officials downplay the problem.
The suggestion that the facility is in disrepair is inaccurate.
Stephen Johnson is the Convention Center Corporation's Vice President of Public Affairs. He said the larger recommended fire sprinklers are due to be installed next year at a cost of $700,000. But why did it take 3 years?
It's not the only thing that needs to happen in the building. There's multiple things that are priorities in a capital maintenance and repair log, and you have to look at the whole picture and decide what is a priority to put first and foremost. We evaluated with the city fire department the immediacy of that, and it was not an immediate issue.
He says the repairs have been misrepresented as an accumulation of needed work. Johnson says it's more of a 5-year plan going forward to fix expected normal wear and tear on a building that opened in 1989. The city's chief financial officer, Mary Lewis, elaborates.
I think there's a mischaracterization of what the needs are that have been identified for the next 5 years as a backlog.
Briggs calls that bureaucratic spin.
What they're planning to do in the coming 5 years is fix what they haven't been doing for the last 15 to 20 years. I don't care what label you put on that. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
And the convention center's own president and chief executive officer, Carol Wallace, implied in a 2013 memo the center did have a backlog. Wallace wrote of a, quote, urgency to address deferred maintenance in excess of $30 million. Wallace wrote that the facility's reserve account had been depleted by the failed $10 million effort to expand the center. So now the question remains, how to pay for the $30 million in repairs when the convention center's own budget is $33 million. The convention center first opened 25 years ago. Johnson says the city set aside money each year to run the facility, pay for maintenance, repairs, and future projects. But years later, the city eliminated that funding and required the convention center to make annual requests for money. Johnson says the city now gives the convention center $3.4 million every year, but nearly $2 million of that is spent on a contract with the San Diego Tourism Authority to market the building. Johnson says it's not enough to pay for the center's upkeep.
The real big challenge we face is funding the replacement of the sail pavilion.
The Convention Center Corporation is looking at offering naming rights to companies in exchange for paying for the replacement. That practice, says Briggs, is an admission that the city and the Convention Center Corporation don't have a funding mechanism that allows it to break even. San Diego CFO Lewis says it's the city's job to keep the Convention Center in shape, and the Convention Center's business is proof that the city is honoring its commitment. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
Video journalist Nick McVicker helped produce that story. We have more about the risk report and what the city is doing to maintain the convention center online at kpbs.org. San Diego's first permanent downtown public restroom opened today near Petco Park. Designed specifically to accommodate the city's homeless community, who often resort to other methods to relieve themselves in the East Village, where a large portion of homeless people congregate. Nor Kazmi with the nonprofit Girls Think Tank says they worked almost 4 years to get the stainless steel toilet approved and open.
The city in 2013 approved $400,000 for the maintenance, purchase, and installation of 2 of them. So I think that breaks down to about $200,000 per restroom, including the maintenance and all the installation and the permitting process that needed to happen.
The city's first public toilet, dubbed the Portland Loo, opened at 14th and L Street, with plans to install a second one at Park and Market Street downtown. San Diego researchers have been using crowdfunding to raise money for Ebola research. Now they're crowdsourcing for computer power. The Scripps Research Institute launching a volunteer computing project. Here's how it works. You download an app from their site, and when you're not using your computer or mobile device, it will become part of a worldwide grid, forming a virtual supercomputer. Researchers say all that processing power will help them screen millions of chemical compounds to find new drugs for treating Ebola. You can find more about the program at worldcommunitygrid.org. County Board of Supervisors launched an ambitious project this week to help tackle Alzheimer's in our area. Peggy Pico explains who's involved and how the comprehensive strategy works.
An estimated 60,000 people in the county have Alzheimer's disease. It's the 3rd leading cause of death in the region. Joining me with how the Alzheimer's Project aims to help those living with the disease and their caregivers are my guest, Director of Neuroscience at Scripps Health and clinical lead on the project, Dr. Michael Lobatz, and Mary Ball, President and CEO of San Diego's Alzheimer's Association. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Mary, this is a multi-level project. What organizations are involved, and how are they going to work together on this?
Well, this is a collaboration that involves county government, city government, the major health systems in the region, the nonprofit community, law enforcement, and then, of course, our incredible research institutes that we have here in San Diego. And it's a multifaceted approach to look at research and finding a cure or treatment to the disease, to providing more support services for family, to a better diagnosis and standards of care, and then making the community aware about the disease. So it's very comprehensive and involves dozens and dozens of individuals and organizations.
Let's drill down with this, Dr. Lobatz. You're the clinical roundtable project leader. How will this project actually change the way that Alzheimer's patients are treated and diagnosed?
Well, in terms of screening and diagnosis of Alzheimer's patients or people coming in with memory loss, we will be providing evidence-based, literature-based reviews of the screening tools that are necessary, and also get into advisement about the various types of treatment that are available, including testing procedures and so forth, so as to advise primary care physicians as well as neurologists about the appropriate way of evaluating and ultimately managing Alzheimer's disease.
There's not a standardized process, I understand, right now. Why would that be important?
There are varying practices. One good example would be somebody might order a CAT scan, which is an X-ray procedure to look at the brain in somebody with memory loss. Another individual may order an MRI. And knowing the pros and cons of both of those kinds of things is very important, because certain tests reveal certain things, another tests other things. So the kinds of guidelines that we will be developing based on consensus from all the stakeholders and caregivers and so forth in the county is to really advise about how and what is best.
Mary, a part of this is this care roundtable, the part that's dealing with caregivers. What's being done in San Diego on that front right now?
Well, the care roundtable is focused on all the support that families need when they're caring for somebody with Alzheimer's disease. And so we are looking at the availability of respite care in the community, adult daycare services. We're also partnering with the Sheriff's Department and looking at how do we keep people with the disease safe and lower their risk for wandering, because we know in San Diego we've had a couple high-profile cases that haven't turned out well when people have wandered off. So it's looking at all of those issues that people deal with when they care for someone.
Getting back to the wandering, what are some things out there as far as right now, a GPS recommendation as far as, and what will change because of this project?
Well, with this project, we're first and foremost going to be training all of our first responders and law enforcement members so they understand what are the warning signs of Alzheimer's disease or another dementia, how would they communicate with someone who has the disease, and then when it comes to wandering, there's things that caregivers can do to lower the risk, very simple things like putting bells on doors so they know when someone leaves, all the way to technology solutions that involve GPS.
And I think, Dr. Lubetz, you mentioned there's also something coming up through the sheriffs called the Silver Alert. What is that?
Right. Silver Alert is similar to the Amber Alert in that there can be notification both via texting as well as on the highway signs regarding wandering or lost individual. And that's something that is being worked on by the Sheriff's Department right now.
Right here. Now, we know there's no cure for this disease, but there are medications. We see them advertised. Do they stop or reverse this process of Alzheimer's?
The medications that we have are really not treatment medications, but they're more management medications. There is no cure for Alzheimer's disease. It is a progressive disorder. There are some medicines that can help perhaps improve the memory and behavior of individuals if they have behavioral issues.
Okay, and Mary, we'll have to end on this. There's a fundraising element to this. How much is it going to cost and how are you going to raise the money?
Well, we have developed a research fund. It's called Part the Clouds, and it's bringing together all the research institutes in San Diego, UCSD, Salk, Sanford Burnham, to fight this disease together. And we will be reaching out to the community and philanthropists to support this fund and support research here in San Diego.
All right. Well, we have a lot more on our website, kpbs.org. Dr. Michael Lubetz and Mary Ball, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next News Hour, NASA's ambitious push to test a spacecraft to take humans to Mars. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
This Sunday marks the 73rd anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Some of the few remaining survivors in the attack have gathered in Hawaii to remember their fellow sailors from the USS Arizona. The AP's Sandy Kozel shows us the reunion.
The 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor was called a day that will live in infamy. And that couldn't be more true for four men who remember it vividly.
All those bombs blew us. It didn't kill us, but it blew us something awful.
More than 1,100 sailors and Marines died on the USS Arizona. Tuesday, 4 of the 9 remaining survivors, all in their 90s, gathered for a reunion in Hawaii.
Well, I think that my wife saves quarters every year from the time we have the reunion until the next year for her Mai Tais, and she's already saving them for next year. So
Louis Conter, John Anderson, Don Stratton, and Lauren Bruner watched a live video feed from the sunken battleship and described their injuries.
I went to get a gun permit and I found out I didn't have any fingerprints.
Even though this was the last official USS Arizona Reunion Association gathering, it's something that's not stopping these survivors.
Well, it won't be the last reunion as far as the men go.
The men plan to observe Pearl Harbor Day privately on Sunday and toast their fallen shipmates with a bottle of sparkling wine given to them by President Gerald Ford in 1975. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
Showers are in the forecast for at least another day. Although the flood watch is over, coastal temperatures more likely in the upper 60s heading into the weekend. A little warmer, though, in the inland valleys, about 70 degrees by Saturday. And 50s in the mountains for the daytime, down into the 40s at night. And for the desert, a mix of sun and clouds with temperatures mostly in the mid-70s. Let's recap our top stories tonight. The Pentagon is set to release a new report tomorrow on sexual assault in the military. Associated Press says the number of reported assaults rose 8% last year. At the same time, the RAND Corporation is putting out a survey finding victims are more willing to come forward than in the past. The two reports come as Congress pushes for changes in the military justice system to improve how it handles sexual assault. The number of flu cases in San Diego County are up. County Health Agency says its lab confirmed 141 cases this flu season, a 156% increase from the same time last year. And San Diego's first permanent downtown public restroom opened today near Petco Park. It's designed specifically to accommodate the city's homeless community who often resort to other methods to relieve themselves in the East Village. NASA is getting ready to launch its Orion spacecraft tomorrow morning, a shakedown test for a capsule that could someday take astronauts to deep space. We'll have coverage of the launch tomorrow morning on Morning Edition on KPBS Radio. And then on Midday Edition at noon, the case against San Diego rapper Tiny Doe. He's awaiting trial on charges his rap album benefited from the criminal acts of gang members. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.